Good morning, everybody. Welcome to day 2 of SportsPro's OTT USA Summit, and more specifically, welcome back to stage 1. I'm William Tubbs, SportsPro's head of events content, and just as yesterday, I'll be your stage host for today, coming to you live from Wimbledon. For a combination of panel sessions and case studies, we'll be joined today by the likes of TikTok, DraftKings, DAZN, Turner Sports, National Lacrosse League, and Sinclair Broadcast Group, and many others. I also want to highlight some upcoming events heading to you shortly and virtually, as our Insider Series returns in 2 weeks with the theme of monetizations of sports consumption, highly relevant to you all. We have speakers here from the ICC, Miami Dolphins, PointsBet, EuroLeague, and the PGA Tour as well. Please head to the sportsproinsiderseries.com for more information here, as well as the big one. Yes, of course, I'm talking about SportsPro Live, as we're in full preparation mode for our flagship event taking place on April 28th and 29th. Across all the content pillars will be a focus on the innovation and transformation of the sports industry. This agenda, in short, will highlight the organizations demonstrating the most progressive approaches. Some highlighted speakers include the chief executive from the OBS, the executive chairman from the ATP Tour, the co-founder of Castore, the president of Eurosport, the CMO at Visa, and just yesterday we confirmed the CEO at the ECB. So please head to sportsprolive.com for more info and, of course, for registration. Right, everyone's favorite bit, but housekeeping. As of yesterday, please remember you can follow the conversation, have your say on social using the hashtag OTTUSA21 with our Twitter handle SP_influencers. The Swap Card app will be your point of call for all things agenda, networking, social, and tech showcases. Again, please be interactive as possible, so we welcome your engagement across the platform. The more interactive, the better. We particularly encourage you to use the live discussion feature during each session, which is the bottom right-hand corner, formed as a pop-up. Get involved in the conversation, let us know where you're from in the chat tab, and don't forget to ask any questions using the relevant box. Finally, if you have any issues or tech difficulties today, please do lean upon our team via the help desk tab in Swapcard. Right, to get proceedings underway, we have our first session whereby we have Burke Magnus, the EVP of Programming and Original Content from ESPN, and PGA Tour's Chief Media Officer, Rick Anderson, who will be discussing where the OTT and broadcast industry will be in 5 years and what the future beholds for legacy media and platforms. To moderate this session, like yesterday, I'll be leaving you in the very capable hands of SportsPro's Managing Director, Nick Meacham. Over to you, Nick. Enjoy.
Thanks very much, Will. Great to be here with Rick and Burke. And let's get straight into the conversation here. And I think a great way to start talking about the landscape, the OTT broadcast landscape, is to talk about different partnerships that exist between broadcasters and rights holders. And ESPN and PGA Tour have a partnership in place. I'd love to get into a bit of detail as to what the framework and shape of that is with the ESPN Plus relationship. So maybe if we start with you, Rick, if you could just tell us a little bit about what that partnership is and sort of the framework behind that, and then we'll get Burke to give us some insights on his point of view as well.
Sure. So our new deal with Burke and ESPN starts in 2022, and it's actually really interesting from the standpoint of this whole conference, because it does sort of demonstrate the evolution of an OTT product. When we first started PGA Tour Live back in 2015, it was very much a single subscription, direct to consumer product in the way that a lot of original type of OTT products were. And we started off with basically two feature groups and one live feed, and that is as it is today. Under our new deal with ESPN, we will be taking PGA Tour Live and making it part of ESPN's direct-to-consumer platform, but it becomes part of a much larger and robust subscription product. And we're excited to say, and this will be a theme for me today, that we are expanding the from one live feed to 4 live feeds. And as we approach 2022, we'll be working with Burke and his team to figure out what those feeds will be. And that's sort of part of the really exciting part of this, is to partner with them to kind of bring fans what they want on that platform. So we're really excited about it, and I'll stop and let Burke comment.
Yeah, and Burke, give us your take, and how are you guys looking to take advantage of the expansion of content that Rick's alluded to, and what's the dynamic of the relationship from what you're trying to deliver and build with ESPN Plus?
Well, first of all, what excited us most was that the fact that we believe golf is, a perfect sport, perfectly suited for the direct-to-consumer environment. You know, we were always impressed from afar that Rick and the tour had the foresight to launch a product like PGA Tour Live in the early days as a complement to all of their other broadcast and cable coverage. And it just Rick made a great point. It just goes to show you in a very short amount of time where sort of the streaming and subscription content, sports content ecosystem has evolved to the fact that even some of the first movers in the space are now seeing the benefits of being part of an aggregated platform of content like we're doing and others are doing. And from our perspective, we see a couple benefits. One is that, like I said, individual golf tournaments are very broad, in terms of the content that's available. You could literally drill down to, every shot on every hole for every player before you'd run out of ideas. And I'm sure there's ideas beyond that too. But just the breadth of the content in individual tournaments, the fact that the PGA Tour schedule is encompasses most of the calendar year, which is another critical element to subscription content, is to have it span a large period of time to minimize churn. And frankly, just golf overall has become a focus of ours in recent years, the way it hadn't been for many years before that. So now, between our relationship with Augusta National on the Masters, we have a new deal for the PGA Championship, which has a big ESPN Plus component, and now PGA Tour Live, which that will be a really compelling offering for the avid golf fan in the U.S.
And Rick, we're here to talk about the broadcast landscape in the US, and I think what PGA Tour is doing with its rights is probably one of the most, exciting but complex frameworks from a rights owner's perspective. Could you talk about they've got obviously the ESPN relationship, but what else you're doing, particularly in the US? What other channels and distribution partners are you using, and obviously things like Tourcast and Golf TV, how they all fit together, which feels like you've changed a lot, the proposition over the last sort of 5 years or so. So if you could just give us a bit of a look at that, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure. I have to keep a chart up in my office so I can keep track of all of it. We are blessed with just a tremendous amount of content. I'm fond of saying that we're perhaps the most content-rich sport that exists, and so we do have offerings and content and products that we can create for a spectrum of media companies, and we've done that in our new deals. We have our long-standing and very important relationship with Comcast, where we are involved deeply with the Golf Channel, which is, of course, the golf dedicated cable channel that carries all of our tools. We have also then a network broadcast relationship with Comcast and NBC, and then we have a significant relationship with CBS as well. So you think of CBS and NBC having the traditional Final One coverage for golf, Thursdays and Fridays. And then on the Golf Channel, we have content all 4 days. The early rounds are covered Thursdays and Fridays, and then we have early weekend coverage as well. And then on PGA Tour Live, as we go to 4 live feeds with ESPN Plus, we have all the morning content, the early groups, if you will, on Thursdays and Fridays that are exclusive to ESPN Plus, and then we've got content all day long, all 4 days on ESPN Plus, whether it be feature groups or feature holes. And so it's just a really great, robust offering in the U.S., and it all kind of fits together. And one of the things that we've talked to NBC, CBS, and ESPN about is really being connected and not siloed, and having our fans, and if our fans encounter us on ESPN, we want them to know we're on CBS and NBC, and vice versa. And all of our partners have been terrific about that, because we are in lots of places, and we want to make sure our fans can find it. And then Golf TV is really it's all ex-US, and that's probably a whole different conversation if you want me to go into that now. But it's really a different, really distinct from our US deals.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, that is probably for another conversation, but I think one of the more interesting partnerships I think we've seen come into the direct D2C and the OTT space. So Burke, to you, now we've talked about, one more quick question for Rick on that. So you've talked about how the deal has, you had all these different deals that split across different partners and platforms. Have you found now, because of the proliferation of OTT, that it's allowed you to obviously have a lot more rights and assets to sell than you did only as recently as, say, 5 years ago? And as a result, how significant has been the media right revenue bump as a result of that? Has it been, how significant has it been to the PGA Tour's commercial operations?
Quite significant. I mean, I think when we started PGA Tour Live, which also was, by the way, with Major League Baseball Advanced Media, now ESPN. So ESPN was really part of the beginning. It was, it was not a huge money making operation for anybody. It was an idea that we had, that we pursued with BAM, and the content was terrific. But it was, taking its time to build the subscriber base really from scratch, with a sort of standalone direct to consumer product, and that standalone direct to consumer product through the time we were with BAM, and then during the time with Comcast and NBC Sports Gold, which have the product at the moment through the end of this year, we've seen the subscriber levels continue to grow. We had a retailing deal with Amazon that also boosted subscribers, and it starts to make money. And then as a standalone product for a much larger platform and an aggregated content platform like ESPN, it starts to generate, real value for us from a financial standpoint. And I would say to Burke, and I hope he agrees with me, he got us at a bargain. Even though we feel like we did well, we're good bargain content for ESPN Plus. But it's been tremendous. I mean, it really did start as something that was almost proof of concept and not about making money, to becoming an important part of our portfolio.
I'm sure that's the first thing Burke's going to say when you sit around the table to negotiate the next rights deal. Burke, now let's talk a bit more about particularly ESPN, but also ESPN Plus. Obviously, the development of that proposition's been in the works, or been progressing quite rapidly, and you've been announcing a host of new rights partnerships over the last 12 months plus now. How are what sort of numbers and sort of guidance can you give us on, in terms of the growth and the scale of the ESPN Plus proposition, and how that's sitting within your wider ESPN broadcast numbers?
Sure, no problem. By the way, in addition to the PGA Tour Live rights at a bargain, according to Rick, I also got this spiffy players garb that I sport. So, never afraid to fly the flag for our partners. We try to be the best partner we can be. And so that's why I'm wearing the colors today.
Attaboy.
Listen, so ESPN Plus has been just a growth. Yeah. So just tremendous growth for it is part of obviously a complementary or a comprehensive, rather, direct to consumer offering through Disney. The most recent numbers we announced, which were tied to Disney's last earnings, were 12.1 million subscribers for ESPN Plus, but that's part of 147 million across the Disney Plus, Hulu, ESPN Plus, which, by the way, are being sold individually, but also as a bundled proposition for consumers. ESPN Plus being a domestic U.S. product for the moment, and obviously Disney Plus being sold worldwide. And recently, as you're probably well aware, being in Europe, Star Plus, launched in many territories globally as a complement, more sort of a general entertainment complement to the Disney Plus product. So all in all, the efforts are way ahead of schedule for Disney broadly, but that certainly holds true for ESPN Plus. We've had to adjust our projections several times based on growth that we didn't anticipate. So that number obviously is as of January 1st. So as we sit here in early March, I can't give you a number, but I can tell you that it's larger.
That I have no doubt. Now, one of the things when I hear you talking, particularly a business like the Disney family and ESPN, is you have all these different major broadcast properties that sit within the mix, not to mention the ESPN proposition versus the ESPN Plus proposition. How do you work through analysing or determining which proposition is bidding for what and which platform it's going to be on? Are you guys working siloed? Are you working all together? Are you responsible for the collective? How does that dynamic work? I think a lot of people aren't quite sure on that framework. At least I'm not, and I'm asking the question. So here we are.
Yeah, no problem. Actually, it ties to a fairly recent corporate reorganization at Disney, where all of the individual content groups throughout the company were organized, by category. So essentially, take sports as the example. Everything sports related from a content perspective at the Walt Disney Company runs through ESPN, right? So when we're talking about, a property that we might place on ABC over the air or on ESPN's cable networks or on, either our digital or social platforms or now ESPN Plus in the direct-to-consumer realm, or frankly somewhere else someday, on FX or on Hulu or on a different on Freeform, another cable network under the Disney banner. All of that runs through ESPN, both from a live event perspective or, in my world, rights negotiation, rights acquisition perspective, or also in original content development. So ESPN Films, 30 for 30, original product, original sports oriented projects that air on Disney Plus. All of that kind of is organized through ESPN. So it makes for, we hope it makes for easy communication and ease of industry understanding, so that when folks like Rick on the rights side are planning their future from a strategy perspective, they know that if they want to be on ABC or they want to be on ESPN, that's the same conversation. Or if they want to be on ESPN Plus, that's the same conversation. And from a content perspective, a little bit more complicated, but not really, because we look at ESPN Plus as complementary to ESPN. It's not a replacement for ESPN. It's not, it is supposed to work hand in glove with ESPN. And offer sports fans either something more or something different than they would get from ESPN's their primary ESPN subscription on television. So and by the way, that has opened up a world of possibilities and a world of opportunities for us on the property side. Like take the PGA, for example, right? They had longstanding, very positive, very productive relationships with that Rick mentioned. And from our perspective, very difficult for us to acquire a meaningful amount of PGA Tour coverage for television, just based on how crowded our schedule is already on the linear side. But now we can talk to people about things like PGA Tour Live that are purely an ESPN Plus play, which, by the way, makes us a partner with the PGA Tour, which will result in all kinds of benefits for us and for them in terms of 365-day-year editorial coverage on our news and information franchises at a higher level because we'll be on site at so many events. It'll just be easier to do, cross promotion as between the partners that Rick mentioned. ESPN Plus is really the reason that we have a relationship with the tour right now, full stop. And we're thrilled about that. And that has been repeated now at in many different occasions since we launched ESPN Plus. If you just look at the content that's in that product, you'll see that, it's for the most part there's not great overlap or crossover with the linear side, unless there's an opportunity there for based on the construct of the property.
I think you've touched a bit upon the situation that really stands out for me in the OTT broadcast world is the element of fragmentation of rights, which creates huge opportunities for the rights owners to be able to cash in for simple terms on all these assets that perhaps were not being used or were undervalued previously. And I'm sure within your own, it's from ESPN and Disney's perspective, you're able to navigate that pretty well because of the dynamic you're creating. But what are your thoughts more for the wider industry? Do you think that this influx of fragmentation of rights that we're seeing, how that could impact the consumer's consumption of sports? Will it have much of an impact, or will platforms or the MVPDs of the world that are coming into the marketplace, will that help bridge that gap as well? What's your sort of thoughts on the fragmentation side of things anyway?
The way we look at it is, to a certain degree, sports has always been fragmented, right? Take a property like the NBA, right, where there's an 82-game schedule, right? And you've got, I'm a New York Knicks fan. If I want to see the Knicks play, I've got, there's a universe of games that are on my local RSN. There's a universe of games that are on ESPN or ABC. There's a universe of games that are on Turner. You've got to have, there already was that dynamic. Baseball, same way. Hockey, same way. NFL, even though it's an all national proposition, it's spread over 5 different broadcast partners, right? So I think that dynamic has always existed to a certain degree. It's exacerbated a little bit here now that streaming has entered the equation, no doubt about it. But I think that's almost completely counterbalanced by the depth of content that is now available for sports fans, right? This is, for the most part, incremental, and which I think makes for an awesome proposition for sports fans, especially if you're a fan of a displaced team, or if you're we call it global soccer in the United States. You guys call it soccer or football because it's your game. But like if you're a Premier League fan living in the United States, you're served very well now, and that a decade ago you probably had either little or no way to be served well with a depth of games. We do the same for Bundesliga and Serie A on ESPN Plus. Every single game. I mean, that's incredible if you're a fan of those leagues, that you can get that each and every week for the entire year living in the United States. So it's a boon from a content perspective. And I think this is where it all sorts out from a business perspective, which is we still put an incredible premium on exclusivity, right? So not total exclusivity necessarily, but again, using Rick's and the PGA Tour as an example, while they have all that great coverage through NBC, Golf Channel, CBS, when we got to talking about PGA Tour Live, we wanted PGA Tour Live to be only on ESPN Plus, right? So, you can build the exclusivity concept into a fragmented landscape and still be able to drive your business and still be able to serve fans, in a really positive way.
And Rick, what's your sort of take on that on that dynamic? From being a rights owner perspective, and in a commercial role like yourself. I mean, how important is it to make sure that longer term the fans do stay engaged, or really is that not as much of a concern for you because of the scale of content, and it's more about maximizing the content distribution and the opportunities that are now available to you?
Yeah, it all starts with the quality of content, and as from our perspective, we are really blessed that we have high quality content that we can sort into exclusive buckets, as Burke just said. So that really works. The thing that's most interesting to me as a rights holder is when you look, just a few years ago, 3, 4, 5 years ago, these OTT offerings that sports were doing were really, isolated to some extent, small, or as I mentioned earlier, very, very much direct to consumer, lead to the consumer. And that made it a lot harder to be found, right? Even among your core audience, you had to really spend against marketing and against being able to try to get fans to know that you had this product. And you see Disney start ESPN Plus, you see NBC with Peacock, you see CBS now with Paramount Plus, and these major media companies, identifying what's happening in the market and saying we better be there, and we better win in terms of their own streaming activities, and that of course branches out past sports. That's just about the entirety. And so that we were right in the inflection point of that when we did our deals this last time. That was just happening. Peacock wasn't launched when we negotiated our deals. For example, CBS All Access was primarily a TV everywhere platform. Now it's moving more in the direction of its own content. So that evolution, we happen to be just well timed, I think, because we were able to have our product plug into a major service like ESPN Plus, and as Burke said, the broader ESPN family. I mean, that is something that's been incredibly important to us. It's it's a streaming product. We packaged those rights as such when we went to market, but by being on ESPN, even though we're not on any of their linear channels, we're in the family, and we will definitely feel and reap the benefits of that.
Good stuff. So we've got about 15 minutes left. So I really want to get into a bit of the nuances of the landscape, as that's what the session is dubbed. And I'd like to talk a little bit more about what are your respective takes on these new aggregator platforms coming into the market, the MVPDs of the world. What role are they going to play? Because at the same time, we're now seeing the big media businesses creating their own streaming platforms. We've seen the deals like the WWE deal with Peacock, $1 billion over 5 years to become an exclusive home for their content. What's your sense or feel of those MVPD platforms and their role versus the more of the traditional guys out there? Will they be the home for consumption moving forward? Or do you think it will be largely business, sort of business as usual, will come full circle again, and the big guys will be standing out from the crowd? Maybe if we start with you, Burke.
Yeah, I don't know that there's a single answer to it. Obviously, I mean, a lot of the reporting on this makes it appear that, or makes it sound as if one day we're just going to wake up and everything's going to be changed. And business doesn't work that way. It's obviously, you guys know that, everyone knows that it's an evolution. It's optionality in terms of, trying to forecast where the business is going and where customers might be. Everything we've done, in that regard is oriented towards trying to reach fans where they are. We are still very committed to the multi-channel subscription universe through traditional cable, satellite, telco. We don't believe that's going anywhere. But at the same time, we've made a huge priority, and it's obvious to, I think, the world, not just in sports, but entertainment, film and television media. It's not even an exaggeration to say we've reoriented the entire Walt Disney Company during this pandemic, to position, ourselves for that future. And so it's everything we do now, is looked at from a media and entertainment perspective as looked at through the lens of direct-to-consumer subscription and how does it fit, which doesn't mean, as Bob Chapek has said, on various occasions, doesn't mean we're exiting, other businesses, whether that's, movie theater distribution on the entertainment side, or whether it's, the MVPD ecosystem on the cable side. I think, who knows what the answer is, but we think the world's going to settle into a place where, consumers are going to have several options available to them. And right now, we're just happy that we seem to be reaping a certain benefit from being a first mover among our peers in pushing towards that place. Rick mentioned some of the timing on other products related to sports. And then lastly, I'll say, when we go into sports rights conversations, we think we have a really compelling pitch, right? Which is, we're not just one thing, right? We can offer a sports property. And again, it's not a one size fits all model, because we do things across all of this at some level, but we can talk to people about broadcast network distribution on ABC, fully penetrated cable television distribution on multiple ESPN networks, our digital ESPN app, ESPN.com, our social platforms are, have a enormous lead on everyone else in the sports segment. And now we have ESPN Plus, which is out to a pretty sizable lead on the sports direct-to-consumer front. So we just want to be everywhere that sports fans can possibly be, and anticipate from a business perspective where the business is going to be in terms of making it beneficial for us from a business perspective.
Absolutely. Now, looking at one of the other areas that keeps coming up everywhere, particularly in discussions around the US sports market, is obviously betting and gambling and its impact and the growth opportunities around that. PGA Tour's made a few interesting moves. Rick, could you tell us a bit of detail of what that you've already worked through with PointsBet and with NBC and so forth, and talk about how successful that's been and some of the nuances of what you guys have been trying and testing in that marketplace?
Yeah, sure. We are huge believers in the benefit of legal sports betting. We were delighted to see that start to happen in sort of a landslide way in the United States. And Jay Monahan, our commissioner from the beginning, said that we want to be in that space. We launched our integrity program 3 years before we did actually any commercial deals in the space. And so we want to make sure we're careful. And I would say that is kind of the theme that we have right now. We have a significant data deal with IMG Arena, and have been working with them to bring products to market outside the U.S. We are working with them in North America now as well. And so data, which is another great asset of ours, with our ShotLink scoring system and all the rich data that we have, we see, even before you get to video and other types of content, just our data advantage in the space. You also see just the nature of our sport, where you hit a shot and there's a break, and you then you go and hit another shot. It lends itself to betting down the road, and so we think the opportunity is huge. What we're doing at the moment, beyond the deal with IMG Arena, is we've started to have some official betting operator deals in place in the U.S. and we're focused on a number of fronts with experimenting with betting content, right? So I think for ourselves, and probably for most of the major media companies, we're not going to get in the business of being transacting bets. But I think what we want to do on the content side is for that segment of our audience that really loves to bet, or for people who love to bet that may come to us when they weren't otherwise really watching the PGA Tour. We want to facilitate that. We want to deliver them content, and so the things that you've been seeing us do in the market, whether it be with Peacock or Action Network, with official betting operator deals, are us experimenting with that and seeing how what resonates with fans. And I would also say, we're being very careful to protect our core audience and not inundate them with betting content when they may not want it. And that's one of the things that we want to be very careful about and experiment with, is what's the right balance. And we do have the ability to really segregate betting content from our core product if we decide, that's sort of what our fans prefer. And we expect to work with all of our partners globally: Golf TV, CBS, NBC Golf Channel, and ESPN Plus in the betting space, and whether it's whatever products we can bring to life. And we plan to do that with our partners. We're really excited about it. So I feel like we're at the very cusp of it. It feels like we've done so much already in the space, and the team that's working on that is doing a great job, and working really hard at it. But we're really at the beginning, and it's going to be exciting to see where it leads.
Burke, what are you guys doing on the betting front? Also we're seeing a whole host of different deals being rolled out from rights owners' perspective, but also from broadcasters. And I think some interesting deals that I think everyone's looking at or plans are ones like Fubo TV. Again, I spoke to David Ganley yesterday during the summit, and talking about their fully integrating a sports book into the platform, which they this seems like they're quite a way away from. What's ESPN and also Disney's take on that sort of level of integration, or will you see it more of as more of a traditional partnership format for the moment?
Yeah, to start, we really see it as three things. There's an obvious fan engagement aspect to this, which I think just happens organically as legalized gambling rolls out over the U.S. Remember, it has a ways to go until it's a truly national proposition. But that we think that'll happen inevitably, and it'll happen fairly quickly. So we're not pretending it's not coming. It is. There's no doubt. So we think that fans will be just naturally more engaged across various content in a deeper way, which will contribute to audience and usage increases, which is fantastic. There's a second is a content filter here. We think there's a real role for us to play to make gambling information available to fans so that they can be more informed if they do gamble. And so we've launched a show already on ESPN2 that's daily from a studio in Las Vegas that we did with our partner, which is Caesars William Hill. And there'll be more content that'll roll out that'll be both discrete standalone programming, but also integrated into our existing programs, news and information in particular. And then there's an obvious advertising and sponsorship angle to this that we think will benefit from, these entities trying to reach fans through our platform. And the downstream thing is what you just mentioned relative to Fubo, which is we are still part of the Walt Disney Company. I think we have some brand considerations there that are not insignificant, and so we're taking perhaps a more cautious approach to how we may be involved directly or indirectly, in a transactional element at some point. But that's still also obviously, I think, for us, there's a tipping point from a national distribution or national legalization perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. I only got a couple minutes left, so I want to quickly go through a few final bits and one or two questions from the audience, if we can. I'd be remiss not to bring it up, but obviously there's been a lot of reports around what's happening on the NFL rights side that's been covered across multiple platforms, but nothing has been announced formally by the NFL or any of the major broadcasters. We're seeing reports of a lot of the major players are still winning the rights, but with Amazon taking on exclusive rights, which is obviously quite a big deal for them to make that move from what they have been doing. Can you shed any light from your perspective? Where is that negotiation and situation now? Is it a little bit too premature, or is it as reported by some, all done and dusted?
You probably won't be surprised by this, but the reports were premature. I think every sports media writer in the U.S. is trying to break the story, and so they're running with I guess nuggets of information that are perhaps incomplete. So yeah, no, it's not done. We're not there. The NFL, obviously the process has been going on for some time. That's no secret. People have made comments about it. We've made comments about it in terms of its significance to our business and how what a priority it is for us. But no, it's not. We're not done until you see that press release, which is coming at some point, I hope.
One thing I did want to touch on, not just associated with that deal, but also more widely, the big blue chip rights deals. I think the deal, this is significant, 10, 11 years, I think, from when the deal is going to be in place for the rights moving forward. There's speculation is just generally that the premium rights deals are going to see quite a big jump in value. But in markets like Europe and the UK and other further afield, the premium deals are seeing very much a flattening or even a dip. Why do you think, at least from your point of view, that we are seeing that increase value being derived from the premium rights still, when in other markets they are taking a bit of a hit? Is there anything that you can I guess point the finger at that you could shed some light on, Burke?
I mean, listen, premium content, I think, will always drive premium consideration or compensation, right? But I think that's counterbalanced a little bit by the fact that every company now has to make their priorities, right, and pick their partners wisely, because there's nobody who's in a position to have everything or do everything. But there's incredible healthy competition. We're at a moment where a lot of entities are building new businesses, direct to consumer, obviously being first and foremost. And so there's robust competition, and that drives price on the premium content. But at the same time, there's a lot of deals that all of our deals, frankly, have to be disciplined and have to fit into our projections and our strategy for the future. So we think, we think long and hard about where we're going to place our bets, and that portfolio has changed with the advent of direct to consumer, which I'm actually really excited about, because it's gotten us involved in some things that I think will really drive this new business. But the blue chip is always going to be the blue chip, and I think that will be reflected in the overall fee growth. But again, we're focused on doing smart, disciplined deals that'll pay off and grow our business at the end of the day.
Good
Not
stuff.
just
Well, I think we'll wind up here. So thank you very much to Burke and to Rick for joining me, and thanks everyone for joining the session. I hope you enjoyed it.